This is a category of decluttering that everybody dreads, but it doesn't have to be terrible. Hey, it's Betsy from A Flourishing Place, where we talk about all things decluttering, organizing, cleaning, and homekeeping. And today we are talking about decluttering sentimental stuff.
Why is this so hard?
I've got 5 tips for how to declutter sentimental stuff more easily. Tip number 1 is to evaluate why you're keeping it. Is it out of guilt? Is it because of future hopes of something you want to do? Or is it for comfort, right? So if you are struggling with getting rid of sentimental things, these 3 probably resonate with you. Guilt, are you keeping something because it was given to you or somebody passed away and you just don't feel right getting rid of something or passing it along? So guilt is a big one. Comfort, maybe there is something you have. Again, if a loved one passed away or something happened in your life, keeping an item or items from that time may bring some level of comfort to you. Thirdly, future hopes. Are you hanging on to something because it has a special memory and you have hope of doing that again, whether it's a hobby or carrying on someone's legacy in some way? For me, future hopes is a big one. In a past life, I had a little drama company and produced and directed plays. And this was a wonderful time in my life and a really special season. And during that time, the place where we produced our plays, they did not have curtains. We actually had to make and hang all of our curtains. It was a very sort of from the ground up kind of production process. And these black curtains were used in every single one of the plays that I directed. And I held on to these black curtains even long after that season of having that drama company and directing those plays had finished. And I just could not get rid of them because that season of my life, number 1, was so special. And number 2, I really had hopes, and in fact still have hopes to this day, that I will get to direct more plays again in the future, that was not the end of that thing that I love to do. But these tubs of curtains hung around. I finally was able to let them go. And the reason I was able to let them go was I had to talk myself through the conversation. These curtains are not going to, number 1, bring back that time of life. That time is over. It was great, but it's done. And number 2, these curtains are not going to be necessary for you to enter a season again of directing and producing plays. May it possibly be that I enter that season again at some point and I have a need for curtains and I say, oh, I wish I would have kept those tubs of black curtains.
I know it. I know it. I know it.
Maybe, but the odds are more likely that the needs will be different. The other component of this, and this goes without saying for a lot of things, oftentimes sentimental items are boxed up and put away. They're not out on display. They're not being used in any form or fashion. And this was true of those curtains. And the likelihood is that the years would have gone on and I would have opened those tubs of curtains years later if I actually did need to use them and found that they had deteriorated, that they had gotten moldy or mildewy, or there were mouse droppings in them, those kinds of things. There is a tendency for that kind of stuff to happen when we store stuff and put it away and we think, well, someday I'll use it, someday I'll use it. Years go by and it doesn't happen and those things get ruined. And so it was very hard, I'll be honest, it was very hard in the moment to part with those black curtains and to kind of say goodbye to that season of my life, for the time being at least, say goodbye to directing of any more plays. But I don't have to have those things to realize that future hope someday. So number 1, evaluate why you're keeping it. It is really important to get to the root and to talk that out with yourself or with someone else to figure out the root of what the sticking point is, why you're having trouble letting go of that particular thing. Number 2, find a way to memorialize it. This is so important. I am not going to be the person that gets on here and tells you, well, just get over it, pack this stuff up, you'll feel a lot better, suck it up. I don't feel that way at all about sentimental stuff. You would be hard pressed to find somebody that does, who is human, because sentimental stuff is sentimental for a reason. We have a lot of emotions and memories attached to it. And I think it's really important when parting with those things that we go through a process. And so for some people, I have heard the idea of taking a picture of something before they part with it is really important. That one has never really resonated as much with me because I don't really like the idea of a photo album full of pictures of stuff What is more important to me is pictures that have people in them. So oftentimes these sentimental items are connected with people in my life somehow, or a season of my life, or an event. And so if I have a picture from that event or of that person, and that object is in the picture, or if it's an item of clothing or whatever, then that is way more special to me than having a picture. But if that is really helpful for you, I think that's wonderful to take a picture of that object and have it to keep and remember. Another way to memorialize it, and I think we often overlook this, is just by talking about it with somebody. It's just by having a conversation. My mom and I did this recently where she called me. She was going through things in the closets at her house, and she came across 2 coats that I had worn when I was a toddler. And these were like little Sunday church coats, super cute, like little button down the front with a little matching bonnet that went with the coat. I mean, and my mom held on to those. I mean, I'm in my 30s. My mom has held on to those for years. And she called me and she said, I have the little red coat and the little blue coat, and I think it's time. Are you okay with me getting rid of these? I remember when you were little and we would put these on you Sunday mornings. We would take you to church in these, and sharing a little bit with me about her memories of those coats. This was the perfect example. My mom just needed to share her memories of these coats and the enjoyment that she had of dressing me up in them when I was little. And that's what she needed. And then she was able to part with them. And her and my dad have pictures of me in those coats from when I was little. And so it's so important, even if it's just having a quick conversation with someone. I did this myself when I was getting rid of baby clothes. My oldest child, who is 4.5, which you wouldn't think a 4.5-year-old, you'd really be able to have much conversation with in this way. But actually, it really helped. I was able to show baby clothes that this child had worn to them and say, oh, you wore this when you were just a newborn, and Dad and I brought you home from the hospital. And they were actually interested and they actually engaged. And seeing them smile and laugh and ask questions about the clothes that I was sharing actually really helped me to go through that kind of grieving process of parting with these clothes and being able to get rid of them. So number 2, memorialize it. It's so important, whether you do that through a picture, whether you do that through talking it out with somebody and sharing the memories. It's so important. And I think this is not a step that should be skipped. Number 3, find someone to do it with you. I touched on this a little bit in number 2, but I want to cover it a little bit more here. It is so important. Going through sentimental things can be really heavy. And oftentimes it can be heavy because it pertains to loved ones, oftentimes loved ones that have passed away. And so it can be a very emotionally heavy thing to go through sentimental stuff. It is, I think, so important that you have someone by your side who is willing to listen to the stories, who's willing to hear why you're having trouble getting rid of something, or hear you kind of hash out the reasons for why you've kept it all this time and why you feel okay to let it go now. You can do that for other people, and you can have other people do that for you. It's great to do that with friends. It's great to do it with family members, like with a sibling or with your spouse. I think we really, really diminish the importance of having somebody by your side when you're doing this, because it is an emotional process. And so number 3, I think it's critical, do it with someone. Number 4, if there is a lot of things from one person, or there's a lot of one type of thing, be very selective. I think oftentimes we look at everything and we say, oh, it's all so special, it's all wonderful. And I love, the Minimal Mom has talked about this, and it's so true. And I don't know if it's original with her, but it's such a good quote to remember. And that is, if everything is special, then nothing is special. A great example for this in my own life has been my grandpa passed away over 10 years ago. And all my memories of him growing up, he would always wear blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and suspenders. And his flannel shirts were just very special because that's always, that was his look. And so when he passed away, obviously my mom and her siblings were going through things, going through his clothes, and he had tons of flannel shirts. And I picked out one and I said, can I keep this? And they said, well, you can have all the flannel shirts if you want. I mean, they weren't going to do anything with them, but I just picked one and I saved that one and I wore it. I wore it for years. I wore it until the sleeves were all raggedy and the collar was falling apart, just because that was a very special memory of my grandpa. I could have grabbed a bunch of flannel shirts because he had many, but that was one that I specifically remembered him wearing a lot that I really liked, and I just kept one shirt. And you know what? I enjoyed that shirt until it fell apart and I had to get rid of it. But that was just a very special memory for me of something that belonged to him. And there are a few other things for my grandparents that are that way as well. This is a necklace of my Grammy's that I just love, and she had lots of jewelry, costume jewelry, and different things that I didn't keep because I just needed one thing to remember her by. This is jewelry box, again from a grandparent, and it's that green jadeite glass that I just love, and I keep my earrings in here. But again, it's one thing, and so often I think it can be tempting to keep as much as we can, or you know, all the yearbooks, all of the kitchen items, whatever. But it really is special when there's just a few things that you are able to hand pick and keep and use on a regular basis. I wear this necklace a lot, and I use this every single day. And like I said, I wore that flannel shirt until it fell apart. And so I think it is really important to be very selective about the things we keep so that we can truly enjoy those things and truly honor the person who those things are from. Number 5 is to use the wait and see box, or whatever you call it, wait and see box, quarantine box, time will tell box. People call it a bunch of different things, but it's kind of that holding area where you store things if you're not sure quite yet that you're ready to get rid of them. And then you put a date on it to look in that again and to donate it, or not to look and just to donate the box. Often with sentimental things, especially things that are passed down to us, they come already boxed up, or we've been storing them in a box already. They've been out of sight, out of mind, and it's just this collection of boxes that every time we walk by, whether it's in the garage or we go up into the attic and we see them, or they're taking up space in a storage room or in an extra bedroom, it's like, oh, I got to deal with that. And so those things are already boxed, and they've kind of already been in a time will tell box, in a wait and see box for a while. And so in a sense, oftentimes when things are already boxed up like that, you don't necessarily need that step of wait and see. You can evaluate and say, look, I've had this box or these boxes in my house, in my place for months, and I haven't needed these things, I haven't wanted these things, and these boxes have become a burden. And so then I think at that time it is appropriate, and again, have someone with you if this is really difficult for you. Have someone who is supportive and encouraging and who will listen to the things that you need to say with you when you go through those boxes and get rid of them. And I'm not going to pretend that this is easy. It is not. There's that tug of war between wanting the space and not wanting to be burdened with these things, but also wanting to honor the person who these things are from. And so it's a journey, and it's okay if it takes you some time. It's okay if you're not ready to just rip the band-aid off cold turkey and just go for broke and get rid of everything. It's okay if it happens a little bit at a time. But I think the most important thing to remember is to get the support you need from people who love you. So number 1, evaluate why you're keeping something sentimental. That will give you a better idea for what is keeping you from getting rid of it. Number 2, find a way to memorialize it. Number 3, find someone to do it with you. Number 4, if there's a lot of things from one person or one type of category, be very selective in what you keep so that those things truly are special. And number 5, use the wait and see box, but if things are already boxed up, then feel free to get rid of those things. But if it's really difficult, make sure that you have someone with you for support. If you like this video, you might enjoy my free guide on 5 steps for decluttering any space in your home. I will link it up in the description box below. And you might enjoy this video right here that has some more helpful tips on decluttering. I'll see you again soon. Bye.